So when we begin our PhD, we have sort of this sense of how our project should look like. We make the proposal gets approved, and then we start working on it. However, what no one warns you about is how different your actual research is going to look when you compare it to your initial proposal. Because that's what research does. Research expands, research mutates, research changes, and your interests change, your results change, and they sort of drive your research in one direction or another. However, what is the challenging part is to then fit that research that you have 4 years after your initial proposal and fit it into the narrative of your proposal. Because from my experience and from the experience of the clients that I coach, I see it happen many times in which you think you're going to go one direction and then your research diverges so much that it looks like a completely different project. But still, when you have to write about it, when you have to write your thesis, when you have to put it together into something that makes sense and that you are eventually going to submit, you have to make sure that it at least has some ties to what you were originally proposing. So now you're basically facing a bunch of random data, random results, a research question and side projects that just keep emerging and keep going on, and that original proposal that objectively looks nothing like the research that you're doing nowadays. So this is quite overwhelming situation because, of course, when we make plans of how something is supposed to look like, we sort of create that structure of how is this thesis going to look like, right? This is the purpose of the proposal. You're going to propose what are you going to work on. However, as you start your research, as you start working on that, it makes sense that you start opening different research questions that may or may not be related to what you were originally interested in. Maybe you realize that what you were trying to do is not going to be possible due to time constraints, funding constraints, or whatever other reason. Maybe you were collaborating with some collaborators, but they then gave up on the project and didn't want to continue, so now you're left with nothing. So many things can happen, but the point is, how do we make it fit into the narrative so that it makes sense, sort of that it's cohesive and coherent to what you were originally proposing. And this is something that I see many people have problems with, because in general, summarizing research is hard, especially since the nature of research is that when you answer one question, three more questions pop up, and then you pursue some of them, and then 3 more pop up, and so on. So it expands really quickly. However, despite being left with this bunch of random results, we still need to find a way of make it flow into one direction. And the best way to do so is to structure your work from knowing what you already have and knowing what is it that you need in your next steps. What I refer to when I speak about that is exactly doing the exercise that it's not very easy, but it's very necessary, and in the long run it will solve many of your problems, is doing the exercise of going through your past research, maybe the research that you did a year ago, 2 years ago even, the code, the data, the analysis, the plots, and see what are the results that you can take from there. And how can those results fit into the current narrative? Because chances are that those results are going to be a little bit closer to your original proposal that you were writing a few years ago. So you can use those results as a vehicle to connect everything into one narrative. But if you are right now in that situation, if you're a PhD student reaching the end of your PhD journey, maybe 3 to 6 months before submission, if everything feels like a mess, if you just don't know how to put it all together, how to make sense of this bunch of work that you did, and it still feels like nothing is there, I want to invite you to schedule a completely free intro coaching call with me. I will leave a link down below in the description, because this is exactly what I help PhDs do. I help them make sense of this messy research and find a clear story that connects all of those results, all of that data into something that makes sense both to you and your PI. In our intro coaching call, what we do is we sort of touch base. You tell me what is your current problems, what are your current challenges, and we decide together what would be your next steps the actionable steps that you can take in order to be a little bit closer to that written thesis, finished thesis, submitted, and then eventually defended thesis. So I hope that you found this video useful, and as always, see you in the next few days with another video. Bye bye.